Hello and welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. I'm Isha Azim from Racing with Isha. And with me, Nicole Fry from Fans in Focus Media is back from her coverage at Portland last weekend. And Mara Piacentino is ready to discuss Formula One. Joe will join us later in the show, but we'll start off by talking about the Formula One British Grand Prix. But before we start, as always, a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for keeping us on the air and helping us pay the bills. The link is in the video description if you would like to invest through Patreon, or you can always opt to do a one-time investment through Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat. Feel free to buy any one of us coffee or Super Chat, just type the name of who particular, or if you would like to get it for all of us. Now, let's get this show on the road by talking about Silverstone. So, all of us will be watching the British Grand Prix this weekend, and I feel that the excitement level is at a high that we haven't had maybe since 2021 when it was Verstappen versus Hamilton. Now, Lando Norris' last race may have pitted against Max Verstappen, this time after the two collided in Austria, which allowed George Russell to win. And the top two in the F1 driver standings right now are not seeing eye to eye on what happened last weekend. And on top of that, the weather might be an issue with rain predicted in the forecast. So, Mara, how much excitement has the Norris and Verstappen rivalry added to this weekend? And do you think this excitement will carry on into the remaining races of 2024?
Well, a lot, because this weekend they are both starting from the second row. So it for sure will be interesting. And yes, also on the future races, because we understood that McLaren has improved, that they have the best car at the moment, and that Max Verstappen wants to compete for the championship. So yes, for sure there will be an excitement in the next races.
Absolutely. I think this kind of intensified rivalry also just makes these triple header weekends so much more tolerable because it keeps the excitement going. I think it's really interesting for fans. I think even Max and Lando have come and kind of cleared the air saying that, last week was last week, this week is this week, and Silverstone is obviously going to be a completely different race. And we have seen that so far. It is going to be exciting, but I think that this has a lot of fans hopeful that this season is not a fluke when it comes to the excitement and how different it's been from the past couple of years. We've seen some changes. We've seen some changes in the lineup and the driver standings. And now there's really a question of who is going to stand on top of the podium for the constructors and the title championship for the drivers as well. So it's really exciting. It's really fun. And I think Silverstone is it's so exciting.
Yes, definitely. And I believe that the majority of Formula One fans appreciate this kind of excitement when it comes to the races and the season overall. Now, for first practice 1 and 2, Lando Norris was the fastest on both sessions. Max's best result was in practice 1 when he came in fourth fastest. Now, Oscar Piastri was third and second in the two practice sessions, so McLaren does look pretty fast. Sergio Perez did not participate in practice 1 but was third fastest in practice 2. Now, that was yesterday. Today, the weather played mayhem in Q1, and Sergio Perez announced that he would be starting in 15th place. In free practice 3, George Russell was the fastest, leading to qualifying. Now, George Russell does lead a Mercedes front row with Lewis Hamilton in second. All British drivers are in the top 3 positions, and Max Verstappen is in fourth. Max's car seems to lack a bit of downforce and will start next to Lando. So, Nicole, starting with you, who is the favorite to lead lap 1, and what will you be watching for on the initial start?
To lead lap 1, obviously we're going to start off with George Russell, but Silverstone is a favorite track of Lewis Hamilton, and since he is right behind his teammate, I would not be surprised, right around Copse maybe if we see him kind of sneak by and finish the lap. It's going to be a really interesting race, but overall, I think Lewis is probably going to be the favorite at this track, just given that he has a lot more experience than George when it comes to Formula One here specifically and all types of conditions.
So I think that, yes, Russell will lead lap 1. Hamilton is mature enough to know that he has 300 kilometers to go. So there is no rush in overtaking Russell. I will watch also Lando Norris because last year he made an incredible jump start. So, let's see the top 3.
All right, and now looking at the other McLaren driver, Oscar Piastri is fifth and has shown good pace all weekend. Now, he can capitalize on any of the top 4 having issues and claim a podium. Red Bull will most likely only have one car in the point standings. So, Mara, do you believe that McLaren will outscore Red Bull and bring pressure that Red Bull perhaps hasn't faced since 2021?
Yes, yes, I do think so. Also because um, uh, Red Bull is actually getting points only with Max, while McLaren is getting points from both drivers. So that's just enough for taking the lead of the constructor championship.
Absolutely. I think Mara is spot on. I think Red Bull should be pretty worried right now because they have drivers who are consistently not performing in the points positions with Checo and with Max. Obviously he might have some damage to his floor. There might be a little bit of uncomfort or discomfort with his driving style at this track for some reason this weekend, given his current performance. And at the end of the day, McLaren are going to jump on every opportunity they have to make sure that they can inch closer and closer to Red Bull's title position.
All right, now let us talk about Ferrari. So it's no secret that since Monaco, it hasn't been that great. Leclerc was a point finish off fifth place in Spain, but he was out in Q2 today. Sainz has one podium, a sixth place finish, and a retirement since Monaco. They have lost ground to Red Bull, and McLaren has been gaining on them. Now they're 23 points behind the McLaren team, and the drivers have been in the top five. So, Nicole, how do you think Ferrari should respond to this? Do they revert to what worked out? Or do they keep advancing with upgrades, hopeful for a possible turnaround?
Well, given how unfortunate it seemed that their upgrades did not work the first time, I think that they should probably revert and stick to what they know. And if it was consistently working out for them in the beginning of the season, I think that's going to be amazing, and they need to kind of continue from there. I think, as we've seen in the past, if teams just kind of put upgrade on top of upgrade without really getting to the root cause of what is still causing a problem or an issue with their car and why it's not going faster at the end of the day, then that's something that they need to fix first, and then focus later on, improving onwards after that.
Yeah, I think that this weekend there was some confusion between the old car and the car with the new upgrades. They haven't decided what to use until basically this morning. And so Leclerc was out qualified because of that. Basically, he was doing everything, all the sessions with the new updates that have not been chosen for this session, for the qualifying. So yeah, there has been a lot of confusion, and I don't think that they had decided the right path at the moment.
All right, let's now start the lightning round. So Sergio Perez is starting with 6 points ahead of Gasly. Mara, starting with you.
Yes, Piastri will be ahead of Perez, absolutely.
Oh, 100%. I have no doubt of that right now.
All right, now Logan Sargent qualified 12th. Nicole, can he finish in the points?
I hope so. It's 4th of July weekend, and he has to be, driving with the Union Jack on his car. So I think that'd be a nice little bonus.
Yes, let's give him a chance. Yes, why not?
All right, Mara, Nico Hulkenberg, Q3 in the Haas again. Does Haas have a decent car, or is Hulkenberg just forcing the car up front?
Both. Hulkenberg is a really good driver, and the upgrades that Haas has brought are really working.
Oh, absolutely. I think Haas and Hulkenberg have worked really well together to make sure that this car can absolutely fly around Silverstone.
All right, Nicole, Lance Stroll made Q3. Can he get a top 5 finish?
I'm going to say no to this one. It looks like the Aston Martin has pace, but I don't think it has quite enough.
Agree, totally %.
All right. Are Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, who are currently in 13th and 15th, slumping after an impressive start, mainly from Yuki Tsunoda?
Not sure. I will wait to say that. Maybe this track was too cold and not. It wasn't really good for the car. I don't know. Let's wait and see.
I'm going to have to say yes. I do think they're in a bit of a slump. Hopefully they'll get out of it post Silverstone, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right. And as we were talking about it previously, rain could still impact the race tomorrow. So, Nicole, which drivers would have an advantage if it does end up raining?
Oh, I think when it comes to rain, we're going to have, all of our veteran racers, I think with a little bit more experience under their belts, really succeed. I think, obviously Alonso, Hamilton, maybe even someone like Lando Norris, who's been to Silverstone quite a few times, could do well this weekend.
Just one name, Hamilton.
All right. Now here's the last question of the lightning round, Mara. Ocon is starting 18th and Gasly in 20th. Will they finish in the last two spots in the race?
Hopefully not for them. But who else can really finish at the end, at the bottom of the race? So I would say yes.
I would agree. Hopefully not, but they probably will.
All right. Now we have this comment in the chat room. Just Game says, an all girl panel. Love it. We love it as well. It's always fun seeing a lot of women in motorsports, especially at the Grid Network. Now, let us continue with our Formula One section. So, Mercedes is coming off of a win last weekend. As we know, George Russell did take the win in Austria. George Russell would love to make it 2 wins in a row this weekend, but Lewis Hamilton, who has won here in the past, is also looking to earn a win. Now, Nicole, are there any concerns from Mercedes about the two racing each other too hard? Or is Russell a step ahead of Hamilton, do you think?
I think there's always some degree of concern when it comes to teammates who are ultra competitive and racing on their home turf. They're both very comfortable with this track and I think with their cars. And so it's going to be interesting to see. I think Mercedes is a team that prepares their drivers well enough, though, that hopefully it's not going to be too much of an issue like we saw last weekend between Max and Lando.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that there will be much pressure on the team. They will not ruin a race where they both have the chances to get a podium, basically. So
Yes, and the British Grand Prix tomorrow will definitely be interesting to follow, especially with this added excitement of the rivalry between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Now, Max Verstappen has yet to go 2 consecutive races without a win. The last time that happened was in 2022, and those races were Silverstone and Austria. So he didn't win Austria, but let's see if he can still win Silverstone tomorrow. Now, thank you, Mara and Nicole, for covering Formula One. Let us now bring Joe in for IndyCar. Now, for the first time, IndyCar will use a hybrid engine on a points-paying weekend. Mid-Ohio is hosting the Honda 200, and in the first practice on Friday, Alex Palou's Honda was the fastest. Alexander Rossi, who is losing his McLaren ride, was second, and Marcus Armstrong was third. Now, the second practice session ended before we went on the air, and Pedro Award was the fastest. Qualifying is at 3 p.m. Eastern today, and the race will be tomorrow at 1:45 p.m. Eastern. So, Joe, what do you think of the weekend, and are there any notable changes from a normal race weekend?
So far on the surface, the casual fan I feel will see it as a normal race weekend. However, you're watching and you know how this hybrid system works, you're going to start seeing that it's a lot different compared to other series that have hybrid systems where with the push to pass, they could use that hybrid energy over 800 horsepower. That's huge. The drivers have been talking about different ways they're using it, trying to figure out. One of the things I found very interesting, there's concerns about could it impact the tires if you use it up at a time where the tires are going to start wearing out faster. It's been really exciting to see this, Isha, because at the end of the day, we want to see racing really like what you see in Formula One, where each team makes their own car. So there's a lot of different aspects. IndyCar, everyone gets the same chassis. You get one of two engines. But with this hybrid component, it feels like we get a little bit of that individuality between teams. I'm very excited to see this, seeing how the drivers, I mean, in practice today, we were seeing drivers using up the entire hybrid energy battery on that backstretch, recharge it up. I'm really excited to see this race. But overall, I think we're in for some really good racing.
Yes, definitely. And unlike Formula One, the weather forecast shows no weather issues for today and for tomorrow. So Alex Palou won this race last year, and before his win, Scott McLaughlin and Joseph Newgarden won in 2022 and 2021, respectively. Now, 7 different winners have been in the last 7 races at Mid Ohio, 8 different winners, as Graham Rahal won here in 2015, and Scott Dixon leads all drivers with 6 wins here. Dixon and Rahal were the only drivers to win and not start in the top 10 when they won. So, Joe, how important will the start be? And does the side or outside lane have any advantage?
When it comes to the start, especially since you're starting on that backstretch, where after the keyhole corner, you're coming to that long backstretch. I feel if you're on the what will be the inside line closest to the infield of the track, you're in a little bit of a better predicament because if you're on the outside, you'll be on that outside for that first corner. If someone goes wide, it could push you off the track. If you're not careful, you're going to be finding yourself in trouble. I like the idea if you're on the inside line, even if you're side by side, entering that corner, you could get that drive out to try to get back onto the inside when we go up the hill and you make that left hand corner. That's another tricky area, and you got to make sure you have a good start. Try to keep side by side in that inside line, get ahead, so that way as you're going up the hill, you could be single file because we've seen after that hill, cars get contact, spin in, get into social trouble. So overall, I would prefer to be on that inside line, especially if you're in the first two rows, because you want to get that clean start and try to get single file after that first corner.
Yes, definitely. And now, Joe, yesterday there were a couple of notables. David Malukas and Nolan Siegel were both in the top 10 at one point. The rain showed up and caught a couple of drivers, including Marcus Armstrong, by surprise. So, out of the two drivers, who do you anticipate to have the better day at Mid Ohio?
Oh man, I'm looking at. I have to say David Malukas just because he's raced here before. He has the experience. I feel that team, they're just sort of rebuilding their confidence. Tom Bloomquist was the rookie. Some people say he had too little time. David Malukas, he's not a rookie. Yeah, he's going to have to get used to this hybrid system, but so does everyone else. So maybe this gives him a little bit more equal ground. I think David Malukas is going to outperform Nolan Siegel. For Nolan Siegel, it's just a matter of logging the laps, staying out of trouble. If the caution comes out at the right time, maybe that team could be aggressive. Let's put a strategy where if it works, we could be towards the front. If it doesn't work, well, we tried. He is very much only second race into the McLaren. That team should just give him the opportunity, log the laps, and if the cards fall right, position himself for the win on an aggressive strategy. David Malukas, he's going to outperform. I think he's going to be a more conventional strategy. Just go out there and try to get the best finish possible.
Yes, now David Malukas did sign with McLaren, and Nolan Siegel is in his seat. Siegel will have a new teammate next year. Christian Lundgaard will switch to McLaren after the 2024 season to replace Rossi. Now, on Tuesday, Marshall Pruitt from Racer Magazine posted an article where Bobby Rahal expressed his disappointment in losing Lundgaard. He said a lot of drivers always feel like the grass is greener somewhere else. Now, is Bobby right about drivers looking for better opportunities, and are you surprised by his disappointment?
I was surprised by his disappointment, especially making it so public. We got to be honest, Rahal Letterman Lanigan is not exactly one of the top teams, especially after the Indianapolis 500, where we again saw Graham Rahal on that last row shootout. That is never a good sign when your cars are just that slow. Christian Lundgaard has really, I think, been a good asset to that team, getting the most out of the car, getting that win last year. He's really showing his talent, and unfortunately, this is a sport where if you're a talented driver and you feel like the team is not exactly helping you reach your maximum potential, you got to make the switch. We see this all across Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar is no different. I think the discussion Bobby Rahal brought up to Marshall Pruitt about loyalty, this is not the same IndyCar 15, 20 years ago where Rahal was very loyal. You had sponsors very loyal to drivers like Bobby Rahal. Everyone remembers his racing career with the Miller Genuine Draft, Miller Light car. You don't see sponsors being that loyal to a team or driver unless they're winning all the time. So I think it's just sort of surprised me that with Bobby Rahal's comments, I started wondering, okay, we know the team is not exactly on the top level. Maybe are they getting a little antiquated with some of their ideas, some of their approaches to the racing, and that's why they're falling behind? Or is it really just a case of they're just not getting the maximum out of the drivers, out of the mechanics? It really starts to raise eyebrows as to what's going on over there in that team.
So, Joe, you mentioned about Rahal looking to rebuild the team. Is time running out for him, or would this proposed charter possibly help the team?
This charter, I think, will be near perfect timing for Bobby Rahal. He's probably the biggest advocate for it, in my opinion, because After what he's gone through with that team struggling at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, getting bumped from the Indy 500 last year, nearly getting bumped this year. If there's a charter system and they're locked into Indy 500, or even I'll say this, if there's a charter system and there's no guaranteed spots in the Indy 500, but you still have a charter system in place, when Bobby Rahal decides, hey, I'm going to fold up, sell the team, he's going to get a lot more value knowing you got a team that's locked in every single IndyCar race except the big one. Or if the big one is included in Indy 500, you're going to get a lot more value out of selling your equipment, your team, because you got to secure a spot in each and every race compared to you don't have that. If he tries to sell now, you're just buying used parts for an IndyCar team that has not been delivering good performances. So this is very interesting just to see how this could all develop with the charter negotiation between IndyCar, the teams. Ray Hall, I think he's in it for the long haul. He'll love to rebuild, see Graham take over the team. But now you got this aspect where if somebody comes in saying, hey, we really want to get in IndyCar, especially this new Fox TV deal where all the races will be on broadcast television, it really gives him an upper hand. And we'll see if he can continue to rebuild because that's what the team is really going to need to do, especially after Lundgaard's gone.
Yes, definitely. Now, the Honda Indy 200 is tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Pacific. About the time IndyCar ends, NASCAR will be starting. So let's take a look at NASCAR quickly. Now, the NASCAR Cup Series is at Chicago for the second Grant Park 165 in Chicago. Shane Van Gisbergen is here and looking to win the second race on the streets of Chicago. He's running in both the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series races. According to DraftKings, Shane Van Gisbergen is the favorite entering today. So, Joe, is SVG more or less likely to win this year? What do you think?
I hate to say less likely just because now everybody knows what he's capable of doing. Everybody's going to be racing him hard. They're not just going to give him a pass. We're not going to have the weather situation like we did last year. Now, all the drivers, especially like Chase Elliott, Justin Haley, they got the data from last year with how the car was running, how the track was evolving. Granted, very different conditions. I think it's going to be hard for Shane Van Gisbergen to get the win this year. Is he a favorite? Yes, he's still, I think, the favorite. He got the pole for the Xfinity Series race. I think he's going to be using that data from the race today to help him tomorrow. You don't have that many Cup Series drivers doing both races. Shane Van Gisbergen has to be a favorite, but I think where last year it was a perfect combination of the wet weather, we've never done this before, caught everyone off guard. Now everyone knows he's a driver to follow. If you're behind him, if you could get ahead of him through strategy, you're going to do that. And you know he's coming to race full time soon in the NASCAR Cup Series. Nothing wrong with roughing him up, especially if you're fighting for the lead.
Quick follow up, Joe. So, you mentioned using old data. Do you think any notes from last year apply to this year?
Oh, I mean, like Justin Haley, Chase Elliott, they're very good racers. I think, especially Chase Elliott on the road courses, we've seen time and time again, he can work his way towards the front. Considering we got much different weather conditions, I think when it comes to the tire data, that's really going to be interesting to see as the track heats up. Will the tire aggregate a lot faster? Will they wear out faster? More pit stops? But we got a shorter race where last year it was, I believe, to 220. Now it's 165. It's going to be really interesting. You can't really rely on the strategy from last year, especially since the rain messed everything all up. It's really just more how the car felt getting that setup. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think the notes, mainly from the driver on how the car feel, downforce level will be great. Everything else is just a wild card, in my opinion.
All right, now after Chicago, 6 races remain in the regular season, and that includes Pocono, Indianapolis, Richmond, Michigan, Daytona, and the Darlington Southern 500 to end the regular season. Now, 5 drivers are in the playoffs currently without a win. Let's have our first NASCAR playoffs in or out after Chicago. So, Joe, for the first one, Martin Truex Jr., 143 points above the cut line. Is he in or out?
Easily he'll be in after this race.
Ty Gibbs is 70 points above. Is he in or out?
He's going to be in. He's just round that line. If he has a good finish, he'll keep himself safe.
All right, Ross Chastain, 66 points above. In or out?
He is borderline in. If you see like Busher or Bowman win and the other driver, 15th or 16th, gets second place, he could easily be out. He just has to have a solid run. Don't make mistakes. Top 10 finish will secure he's in.
All right, and Chris Buescher, in or out?
I think he's going to be in. He is good on these road courses. I'm going to see him in the top 5, in my opinion, this race, especially without the weather factor. He'll be in.
All right, and here's the final one. Alex Bowman in 16th. Is he in or out?
At 51 points ahead of Bubba Wallace, I think he'll be in. Last year, he had an engine issue, did not finish. Bubba Wallace is not exactly the best road course racer ever. I think he's going to be safely in just because he's that far ahead, 51 points ahead of Bubba Wallace.
All right, now practice started moments ago, and qualifying will be later today. Stage 1 will be 20 laps, Stage 2 is 25, and the third stage is 30 laps. Last year, the race ended early due to darkness. As you mentioned, we will have stage cautions. So, Joe, how will strategy play out in the Cup Series race?
The strategy you're looking at this race, especially since it's such a short 165 miles, I'm looking at the idea you're going to want to work from the back. So essentially, pit as early as you can and make it to the finish of the race. Taking into account at least, I would say, 2 overtime attempts. I don't think we're going to have a crazy overtime attempt like we did at Nashville last race weekend. You work yourself back. I think what you could do is you could win stage 1. You could probably pit halfway between stage 2 or towards the end of stage 2, sacrifice those points, and then work your way towards the front when everyone pits during the stage caution for the second stage. That's what I think is going to happen. So you see it as quite common in Sonoma, where a lot of drivers will be doing this. The big thing is when the cautions will occur. I will not be surprised, Isha, if we see a team halfway through stage 2, a caution comes out, and they decide, let's pit now, just work our way towards the front, stay up there because of the tire wear is not an issue. Passing is going to be hard. One driver I think that could do something like that, Shane Van Gisbergen. He's not in it for the stage points. He's just in it to get the race win. If he could get the race win, he'll be 2 for 2 in Chicago. People again will be talking about him. He could easily have the most aggressive strategy for this race. I will not be surprised if you see a caution halfway through stage 2. Watch what Shane Van Gisbergen does. If he's mid-pack, he's going to pit. If he's towards the front, I think he'll still pit because he has the confidence in himself and the car to work his way in stage 3 to get that second win.
Now, Joe, last year, many hailed this race as one of the best in the 2023 season. We had weather, a surprise winner, a twilight finish for the race, and just chaos. Can this race live up to the hype? What do you think?
It's going to be hard. I think the chaos of last year, the rain and everything, allowed this race to be so popular. But if we had just, this car is not exactly the best on the road courses. If we had the good weather, normal track conditions, the usual suspects up towards the front, I think it would have been a little bit more of a traditional road course like a Sonoma or Circuits of America. Not that many passing, people just learning the racetrack, getting the hang of it, and then most of the passing occurring through the pit stops using strategy. That's why I think we're going to be seeing. Granted, this is our second time, so you're not going to see drivers just taking it easy. You're going to be trying to make their moves, especially if you have a poor qualifying effort. But you got the strategy aspect of when a caution comes out, when do we pit? So I think it's going to be hard to live up to the hype. At least this year, the concerts, they're not going to be called off like last year. The fan zones are not going to be, drenched in wet weather. We know NASCAR put a lot of effort to make this event more than just racing, music, live entertainment. So at least for the fans attending, they're going to be much drier. Hopefully they'll enjoy the music, all the fun activities, and still enjoy a good race. Nothing wrong with the race last year. It's just the weather, the chaos of it. That just always makes it where everyone's going to remember it, especially since it was the first time.
All right, now grid ranking week 14 will be coming out later today. Joe, let's now talk about the top two in the grid ranking racing this weekend.
Yeah, the top two racing this weekend in MotoGP and the Repco Supercar Series. And what a first race we saw in both series. Pekka Bagnaia entered this weekend as the grid ranking leader, and so far he has extended it with his third place finish in the sprint race. Miguel Oliveira, Trackhouse Racing, what an effort, second place, and Jorge Martin winning the race. It's going to be an all Trackhouse front row. Will be something else if Justin could get a win in MotoGP and NASCAR Chicago Street Race. Martin, he's now second place in the grid ranking, not only because of his win, but in the Townsville 500 race one. Chas Mostert, what a battle he had with Cam Waters and Will Davison for the lead. That was under sunny skies. The next thing you know, we had some rain. Cam Waters, he got the best of that battle, ultimately went on to survive the rain, bring home his second win of the year. And Will Brown, he was starting deep in the pack. He came home to finish third place, so he got a podium, but Brown's scores dropped to 18.54, so that puts him behind Jorge Martin. So it's a MotoGP 1-2 right now in the grid ranking. Townsville 500 race 2 will be later today, so it'll be really interesting to see what's going to happen with that. And then, of course, MotoGP, Formula 1, IndyCar, NASCAR, a lot of racing ahead. Let's bring everyone in because one of the big things, Mara, it's time for everyone's favorite game, and the music cooperates today. Pick a winner.
Yes, so as you were saying, a lot to talk about. Let's start with Formula One. Isha, what's your prediction for Formula One?
Oh, I wrote down one prediction, but I'm going to go with something else. I'm going to say Lando Norris.
Okay, Nicole.
I'm going to also go with the McLaren driver, but I think it's going to be Oscar Piastri.
Joe?
Oh, man. All McLaren so far. I'm going to go with George Russell. Why not?
Okay, and I'll go with Hamilton.
Ooh,
So, IndyCar, Isha.
I'm going to go with Alex Palou for IndyCar.
Okay, Joe?
Oh, I'll say Pato O'Ward.
And the NASCAR, Isha.
I'm going to say SVG.
Yeah, SVG. He's the favorite. Can't deny that.
Then we have MotoGP, Isha.
MotoGP, I'm going to go with Pecco Bagnaia.
Joe?
Jorge Martin.
Okay. I'll go with Bagnaia as well. And the last, the Supercar, Isha.
I'm going to say Will Brown.
Joe?
I think I'm going to go with Brock Vini. So, be interesting to see how it all shapes up. Adam is going with Norris, Scott McLaughlin, SVG, Pecco, and Will Brown. We encourage everyone, be sure to not miss out on picking your pick a winner picks. Nobody has claimed the 10 bonus points for sweeping the weekend, but that seems impossible with these year, especially with the one time everyone picked Max Verstappen and he did not get to win. That just ruined everybody. But of course, we encourage everyone, subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube. Hit the bell icon. Don't miss any of our programs. We'll be back on the air tomorrow. Be sure to visit our website, gridnetworktv.com. We change all our social media handles to Grid Network TV so you can find us across social media and online on our website. A big thank you to everyone that keeps investing in the Grid Network, especially Astro Police, $20 to the folks at Grid Tonight. They're going to really appreciate the funds there. And calling the show, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, for investing in us. Robin, increase her pledge each and every month. That's why her name's in gold. You too can invest in the Grid Network as well. Keep us on the air, help us pay the bills, and help all of us get to the track. We know we had Nicole on the track. We definitely would love to have Mara, Isha get to the track someday too, as well as everyone at the Grid Network team. For Nicole, Mara, and Isha, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We see you next time and enjoy the races.